video doesn't start without telling you that I've got a coffee. But welcome to today's video. We are going to be running through a meal plan, how to create your own meal plan, specifically how I structure my meal plan, and then basically you can take that structure and apply it into your meal plan, because I might have some things on here that you're just like, I just don't like it, and you don't have to eat it. So let's get into it. That was a lot of baffling, a lot of waffling at the start of the video. But now that we're done with prep, I think the importance of a meal plan kind of reigns supreme here, because essentially you've just gone from, not even prep, but like a fat loss phase in general. If you've gone from something that's so ridiculously rigid and not very flexible at all, which is what rigid is, but if you've just gone from something like that and then all of a sudden you have no structure at all, you're probably gonna binge quite a lot. So in this phase right here, where I've just kind of exited prep, this phase is probably where you would want a meal plan the most. So let's get into it. So the most important thing is we want a meal plan to hit our protein, our carbs, and our fats, and obviously within that we wanted to hit our total calories. So there's a few rules with a meal plan. We want our protein and our fats to be distributed quite evenly throughout the day. We don't really want like one meal to have like 70 grams of protein in it and the next meal to have like 20. The same as we don't want like 70 grams of fat and then 0 in another meal. We just want them to be fairly kind of evenly distributed throughout the day. And then carbohydrates, we want to be prioritizing around our training window. Our peri-workout nutrition has to be kind of on point in terms of carbohydrates. So again, we don't want to be, say if we're training at 5 p.m, which is when I train, we don't want to be loading carbohydrates heavily in the morning and then we're not doing anything around the training window. We kind of want to be sparing kind of early in the day, and then we want to be prioritizing carbohydrates around your training. Now, we won't go into the nitty-gritty side of things in terms of how to calculate your macros, because I actually have another video which I'll revert you to, basically how to calculate your kind of macros, or how to calculate your maintenance calories, and from there how to calculate how much to kind of cut when you're in a deficit, and also how much to add when you're in a surplus. So I'll divert you to that. Once you go and watch that, come back to this, and then we'll go through everything. Everything will make sense. Now this is all going to be in line with Chrono Nutrition as well. If you don't know about Chrono Nutrition, I might actually do a vlog on this as well, just regarding kind of setting your meals out in a way that would be favourable for our circadian rhythm. But in any case, I do train at 5 p.m. as established, so this meal plan is going to be heavily set up in a way that's going to be prioritizing the 5 p.m. slot. If you train in the AM, then obviously you want to be quite savvy in terms of your kind of post-workout nutrition. Pre-workout nutrition is not too bad, just make sure you're covering protein, potentially just making sure that you have carbohydrates post-workout. But in any case, if you're training at 5 p.m, this is going to help you out quite a lot. Okay, so let's get into the meal plan. So meal number 1 is going to be Greek yogurt whey with some clusters, like crunchy nut clusters, they're very good. Also 1 piece of sourdough bread, and then I have Marmite on that as well. Now the macros for that are going to be 50 grams of protein, it's going to be 13 grams of fat, and then about 70 grams of carbohydrates, and that really covers meal 1 very nicely. Now I don't want anything that's going to be too kind of heavy, because I typically work the most in the morning, and I don't want something that's absolutely huge, because essentially that's just going to take away from my productivity. So that's what we do in the morning. In terms of meal number 2, which is going to be, I should really say the times. Meal 1 is going to be around 9 o'clock. Meal 2 is going to be around 12 to 12:30. So meal 2 is going to be 100 grams of white rice, it's going to be 50 grams of broccoli, and it's also going to be 150 grams of chicken, typically with a seasoning. To be honest, I don't really track that, because again, I'm going to have this every single day. Meal number 3 is going to be around 3:30 to 4. Now it's going to be like an hour and a half before my workout. And typically what I do in that meal is it's going to be the leftovers of my kind of meal 2. So basically I'll cook a lot of food. I'll cook 300 grams of chicken, I'll cook around 250 grams of rice, and then I'll basically and obviously broccoli. And then what I'll do is I'll basically split it up into 2 meals. So basically meal number 2 has got 100 grams of white rice. Meal 3 is exactly the same. except it does have 150 grams of white rice, and this is going to be my pre-workout meal. It's just going to have more carbohydrates in it. So you see, it's very, very simple so far. Meal 2 has around 80 grams of carbohydrates, has 3 grams of fat, and also 47 grams of protein. And then for meal 2, we're looking at about 120 grams of carbs, 3.4 grams of fat, and then 50 grams of protein still. So easy right now. The first 3 meals are just... So it knocked out around 150 grams of protein in 3 meals. Done. So after this is when it starts to get a little bit flexible, and you can be quite flexible in your meal plan. So this meal is typically going to be a meal with nat. The first 3 meals I don't really eat with nat. This meal I eat with nat, which means it has to be quite flexible. So in essence, we only really eat 2 meals. One of them is going to be fajitas. The next meal is going to be like a mince with ragu and pasta. They're going to be fairly similar macros. The only difference is the ragu meal has slightly more fats in it. So essentially my last meal, which you'll see in a minute, I will basically just have less fats. That's it. So it doesn't, like a meal plan doesn't have to be that rigid, it just has to be somewhat structured. There's a big difference here. But essentially that meal is going to be prioritizing carbohydrates, so we're looking at around 120 grams of carbs, typically 120 to around 130 is about where it hits. Around 5 to 6 grams of fat. If we have the ragu meal, it goes to 10. And then protein is 30 to 40 grams, again, depending on meal. Now the last meal is my meal number 5, and that's typically around an hour and a half to 2 hours later, and about 2 hours pre-bed. And that's basically going to be Greek yogurt with whey, and it's also going to have Cocoa Pops in there as well. Now there is a big reason why I have Cocoa Pops at the end of the day, and basically in line with Chrono Nutrition, you kind of want something that's kind of a high GI carbohydrate is quite favourable pre-bed, so that's why that is in the last meal. And that's typically around 70 grams of your boys' carbohydrates, around 5 grams of fat, and also around 30 to 40 grams of protein. But essentially here there's minimal decision fatigue. I'm just basically going to eat very, very similar meals each and every single day. So I'm eating to my goals, I'm not having that much decision fatigue. The macros and micros are all covered. I'm prioritizing nutrition in terms of sports performance or training performance, and it's in line with Chrono Nutrition. This is like the perfect meal plan for me. Again, there's less of a chance of a rebound if you jump into something like this. You're not going to be like gazing at Pop-Tarts or kind of looking at Krispy Kreme donuts, because essentially you're just going to be looking at this, which is quite satiating and also structured. And also, in my opinion, those who keep this kind of structure in the longest throughout an off season, they're the people who are going to come back on stage or come back the next year looking completely different. If you're training hard and you have this type of structure and you add food where necessary, when weight inevitably plateaus, then you're guaranteed to make significant gains. Anyway, that is my meal plan. Hope you took something away. I'll see you in the next video.